Heaven Hill's Grain to Glass series. When it originally released a little over a year ago now, it was pretty hard to find, especially in my state. I recall a period of time talking to stores and they were saying, hey, we're only going to get like 1 bottle a month of each. So, keep trying, but good luck. Thankfully, these things are a lot easier to find nowadays. So if you were interested in one, they're becoming significantly more findable, but they're also starting to sit on shelves. So the real question we have to ask ourselves is, are they worth the money? At about $100 MSRP, plus whatever local taxes you have, you need to compare this to a number of different products, and each one is quite a bit different, with the bourbon being the lowest proof among all three between the rye, the wheated bourbon, and the regular bourbon. Now it does sit at 107 proof, which is a pretty popular proof point. However, it's not age stated, and one of the big things about it is that everything that is sourced to create the product, Heaven Hill has tracked all the way from where it's grown to when it finally ends up in a bottle. Kind of going with the whole farm to table concept, except in whiskey, in grain to glass. But is all of that worth it? And don't most of our distillers actually know all this information anyway? 2 Minute Tuesday, we're going to review grain to glass bourbon and see if it still holds up to the honestly level of scarcity it had about a year ago, where this regularly on the secondary was about $200. And now, sometimes, depending on where you are, you can find them for less than their MSRP. I think we've seen a lot of people who play the secondary market try to flip things for profit, trying to dive out, and they'll take products like this that they've been holding on to for a while and just try to get something back out of them. So sometimes it's very advantageous for us drinkers to take advantage of that market. That doesn't matter. Let's talk notes, all that good stuff, and whether or not grain to glass bourbon is worth it. Color's pretty typical bourbon. Nice kind of amberish tone. For 107 proof, I don't know how well you see that, but the viscosity is okay. Got some decent legs. Let's get into the nose. If you like the Heaven Hill bourbon profile, that kind of nuttiness that is there, it's definitely here. I don't think it's all that much different in the nose than the regular Heaven Hill Bottle and Bond 7-year, which, considering that this is double the price of that bottle, that's not looking so good so far. Yeah, there's a lot of nuttiness, a little bit of like kind of the buttery popcorn thing, which I get out of a lot of Heaven Hill bourbons. There's not a ton of like big caramel or some other kind of big sweetness. It's there, but the nutty profile is definitely the primary thing coming through. There's a little hint of vanilla, but it's very faint. Let's go to the palate. It drinks a lot better than the nose would initially get to you. I think off the nose, like, it's not too impressive because it doesn't have a lot of complexity to it. But on the palate, there's this lovely little sweetness up front. I would say it's kind of like a caramel. You've got kind of a little peanut brittle-y thing going on, which I get in a lot of more like Knob Creek products. It's kind of coming forward here. There's a touch of vanilla, a good amount of that Heaven Hill oak influence, which tends to get a little nutty for me, and that's definitely present in this. But more importantly, like, it's lingering pretty good for 107 proof. And it's not quite as quick on the palate as like the Heaven Hill Bottle and Bond, which you would expect it to be more, but given it's not age stated and the rough estimate is somewhere between 6 to 8 years on most of this product, there's only so much influence you're getting other than a little bit more proof. You're going from 100 to 107. I think the thing that stands out to me, this is a super like crushable pour. Despite being 107 proof, it really is, and everybody dreads this term, but like smooth, because every time I sip this, it's basically the same profile. There isn't something extra standing out to me. And I'm no Fred Minnick, but overall score for this, I'm only going to go 70. I honestly would significantly rather have a number of different products out of the Heaven Hill product line than this. And I think considering the price, like if you prefer barrel proof, you would go with something like an Elijah Craig barrel proof. If you want to stay closer to that like Bottle and Bond, you can get Henry McKenna's now far more reliably than you used to be. And honestly, I think they have a lot more flavor in their profile. Plus, being a single barrel, there's a little more variance where this is going to taste the same every bottle. There's, like I said, that kind of wonderful Heaven Hill nutty thing going on, a little bit of kind of caramel, a little bit of vanilla. As you get toward the mid and end portions of your palate, right, the middle and finish, you get a little bit of barrel spice pepper, you get a little bit of leathery kind of oak influence, but it's not drying. So it's got a kind of nice little ride it takes you on, but that ride is not big punchy flavors. It's kind of nice and relaxed and chill. It's like the very end of a roller coaster, right as it's slowing down to come to a stop. But there's none of the fun, crazy parts of the roller coaster in the early portions. Unless you want a much more mellow pour, and I have some friends who can't handle barrel proof anymore. They much prefer that kind of 100 to 107, 108 proof range, sometimes even lower depending on the product. And if that's what you're looking for and you like a lot of the classic Heaven Hill notes, this might get you there. But you could probably also get there with basic Elijah Craig small batch, or maybe even something like, say, the Evan Williams line, because they have a number of different releases that come out. And the Evan Williams single barrel is about 50, 55 bucks, where this is going to cost you 100. So again, it's one of those things where, given that it's not age stated and we know it's only like 6 to 8 years and it's pretty close to that 100 proof, I don't know that it's worth double the money. I mean, I would look at it like this, right? I have a pick of Elijah Craig right here, and I have a Henry Kendall single barrel. And then if we're going the true allocated, where it was the first time there's this coming out, now it's way more available, it's a little different, but like Jack 10, all of these come in under $100. And I would say every single one of them is a more interesting pour than this. So despite the fact that this is regularly available, I don't think it has enough oomph to it to really get past that about kind of like C level grade, where it's, I think it's just kind of a flat 70, and part of that problem is the price. I think if this was like a $60 bottle, $65 bottle, think like your Old Forester 1920, there is an absolute banger of a bottle, always available at like 60 bucks. It's so much significantly better than this. And that's going outside of, admittedly, the Heaven Hill profile, but even inside the Heaven Hill profile, I'm starting to see these Henry McKennas around for like only $55. You know, these picks of Elijah Craig, you can support local stores or clubs, and often these are $60 or $70, so still cheaper. If you're lucky and you get allocated stuff, there's going to be things like Jack Daniel's 10-year. You can find Evan Williams single barrels pretty reliably. Those are cheaper and pretty similar in quality, I would argue. So is this worth the money? No, I don't think it's worth it anymore. But if you've never had one, it might be worth trying to track down a sample or a pour at a bar and get a feel for it yourself. Because again, as I said, if you like lower proof whiskey, this might actually be a really good way to get a slightly elevated version of some of the Heaven Hill profile while still staying pretty within the normal tasting range of Heaven Hill. Now, we still have the rye and the wheater that we need to talk about. We'll sprinkle those in eventually. But I think, considering that it's widely considered the bourbon is the lowest rated of the three, most people, it kind of goes back and forth in my experience. A lot of my friends prefer the wheater and then the rye. But I know a lot of the kind of comments I've seen from, forums or on other YouTube videos, things like that, is typically a lot of people like the rye the most of the three. So we'll compare those over time eventually, but I actually am one of the weirdos. Of all of them, I liked this one the most when I first tried it. And I still think its profile is nice because it's like chill and mellow and relaxed, but I look at that price tag and I think of the swath of various significantly better bottles. I mean, we reviewed one recently. Granted, this is a wheated product, but this Rebel Small Batch Reserve is Heaven Hill. It's 30 bucks. And while it's 110 proof and not and a wheated profile and not the monster, I think it's like 120 something. It's an unfair comparison, if you were to ask me. Just my thoughts. But we'll do that comparison eventually too, right? We have to do the wheated. Just have to. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, I'd love to hear in the comments down below. Have you had the grain of glass? Do you like it? Do you feel it was a complete letdown? Which ones have you tried? Is there one that you would be willing to buy again when your current bottle is empty? Or maybe you're still struggling to find it? I'd love to hear all that stuff from you guys in the comments down below. If you're not subscribed, consider subscribing, because once we hit 1,000 subscribers, we are going to give away this E.H. Taylor single barrel. Very nice. If you like whiskey reviews from a small YouTuber, one of the best ways that you can support us is by commenting, liking, and subscribing. As always, my friends, thank you so much for watching, and stay awesome.